I really believe that the more we know ourselves, the better decisions we can make for our lives and the better we can plan our lives rather than just letting life happen to us.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Holly Worton. Previously, episode 656 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 11 months, 7 days since we last had that conversation.
Trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust your gut. I always say that my gut is smarter than my head. But yeah, just that. And do whatever you need to do to kind of learn how trustworthy you can be.
That was then, this is now. Holly, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent. It means, if I'm not mistaken by the calculation, that you are a creature of habit. Guessing by the span of time that we had the conversation, like 9 a.m. my time, when we last spoke, which is really cool, isn't it?
It's a good time.
So what's new in your world? Please give us an update.
Well, very interesting. In preparation for this, I actually went back and kind of read through the notes because I was thinking, how did we originally connect? What was I doing back then? I feel like things changed so much in my life. And I'm no longer doing a lot of what I was doing at the time that we last spoke. So last time I was business mindset mentor for women, and I'm not doing that anymore. So things have changed.
Well, yeah, I did see that. Like, I looked up your podcast and I saw the name of the podcast now, which is in alignment with the new book, right?
Yes, it is.
Into the Woods, right? So tell us
Yes.
more about that, please, and how that's evolved.
So Into the Woods is about into the woods of you. So into your mindset, but also who are you? Like, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to get out of your life? What decisions do you want to be making? Because I really believe that the more we know ourselves, the better decisions we can make for our lives and the better we can plan our lives rather than just letting life happen to us.
Well, then it still connects, though, from the perspective of you're doing what you're doing, which is based around the concept of intuition. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, so tell us, what does the conversation look like now on the podcast?
So the conversation on the podcast it's more about answering what I call the 3 questions, which are who am I, where am I in life, and where am I going? And just kind of exploring different ways of answering those questions, but also talking about stuff that's going on for me and the kinds of things that I'm focusing on in my own life and how other people can get to know themselves better by asking themselves those kinds of questions.
It's important, isn't it, to at least create a space where you can reflect as to where you are, who you are, and how you're feeling. So many times, I was looking at a study most recently where individuals in LA, I believe, couples only spoke for like 35 minutes a week.
Yeah.
Right? And in conversations, it's so important, one, to have conversations with other people, but with ourselves. How are you seeing that benefiting others that you speak with?
Because I share a lot about what's going on for me, and I really open up and kind of explain like the challenges that I'm having and what's going on with me internally. And I think that by telling my story, it helps other people to not only connect with themselves, but also to realize the importance of telling their own stories.
And why Into the Woods?
Yeah, because I really like nature. So I spend a fair amount of time in the outdoors, in the woods myself. I live in England, so nature here is very benign. It's really safe to go into the woods by yourself. So I do that.
All right. So now, is there a conversation that's happening with nature where nature is speaking back to you?
Yes. So my recent book, which I just released in April of this year, was called If Trees Could Talk. And I do talk to nature, and nature does speak back to me. And I know that not everyone is open to this concept, but the book is a collection of channeled stories from trees, stories that were given to me by the trees themselves. And I collected that in the book. And it was very much about getting to know yourself and kind of personal development through nature.
Yeah, well, that's intriguing. So, tell us one of the stories, please. I'm intrigued.
So I would say the overarching theme of the book that a lot of the trees were saying was to slow down. They kept saying, slow down, you move too fast. And for the previous couple of years, I had done this challenge called Walk 1,000 Miles, and I had logged all of my miles walking out in nature, and I was always walking, walking, walking. But it wasn't until I started working on this book that I stopped and had to sit with the tree to receive its story. And their overarching theme was slow down. Like when you go out into nature, don't just walk around, but sit. Because when you sit and you close your eyes and you're still, you hear things that you wouldn't hear otherwise. You know, if you keep your eyes open, you see things. Once you sit still for a while, the squirrels will kind of come back and the birds, and you'll start to see and hear things that you don't experience when you're walking through the woods. So it was very much about slowing down, not just in nature, but in life.
I love connecting dots, and from our first conversation, you shared your earliest childhood memory where that bird, whether it was a budgie or a parakeet, that flew in. Isn't that intriguing, the way that your attention was pulled to something that is of nature and the effects that it has on everyone? And of course, just to help our amazing audience, it was your parents, right? And they were all running and scanting to get the bird and put that into place. How do you see it connecting now that you've seen the past 3 years, almost 3 years past?
Well, I think it's really interesting. I feel like I'm kind of coming full circle to places where I've been at previous points in my life. Nature was always really important to me. My parents grew their own vegetables. I grew up in California, so we had a big garden. My father had a vegetable garden. He had a rose garden. My grandmother was really into flowers. Like, I came from a very gardening family. And I think that's really helped me to forge that important connection with nature. And also when I was 15 and I got my first job, I got a job at a garden center, caring for the plants and selling the plants. And it's like, I've kind of reconnected with nature at many points in my past. And it's like, I kind of move away from it and then I come back, and I move away from it and I come back, but I keep coming back to it. It's like this theme in my life of something that's really important to me, but sometimes I forget how important it is.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that with the modernization and of course technology. My, technology on your fingertips. So that brings me then to the conversation of death, because that's something we see in nature all the time, right? So how are you interacting with that conversation, that it is possible that you may die today or tomorrow?
That's really interesting. I have been attending this plant spirit healing apprenticeship this year, and very recently we started working with the ancestors and working on healing with the ancestors and helping them move to the light if they haven't already. And that's something that I'd never really thought about before, and I'd never worked with before, and I'd never become aware of this before. And one of the things that we did in our last weekend was we used red string and white string to represent our kind of most significant ancestors on the female side and the male side. And so I've been wearing these strings on my wrists for the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. And it's a daily constant reminder of my ancestors. And of course, our ancestors are our family members who have died. And so I think having these strings and being reminded of this is also reminding me of my own limited time here on Earth. And it's really kind of made me see life differently. I think it's really, really important to be aware of the fact that we don't know how long we'll live. I mean, my father passed away when he was 42 and I was 6. Like, I've already outlived him. So, you know, it could happen.
Yeah, I think it's intriguing. Again, I use the word intriguing. How what you have been focusing on has helped you to change your perception and how you've been evolving, and to think that it's from slowing down, right? Who would have thought, right?
Yeah, I know.
Everyone thinks that you need to speed up, but really you are a true living, walking example of what it means to slow down and gain value from it.
Yes. But it is a battle with myself. You know, I've been really busy for the last month and a half, and this week was kind of the week that I was going to catch up on all my stuff because I had family visiting and I was away at a conference and I had other things going on. So this week was the week where I was going to sit down, I was going to go through my inbox, get stuff done. But my body's told me otherwise. Like yesterday, I answered some emails in the morning and then I just crashed and I had to just sit in bed and read a book. So I still have that kind of battle between I must get things done and, you know, be fast and speed through my work, but then not always can I do that. So yeah, it's really learning about that balance and paying attention to your body. And for me, it's about not pushing myself when I feel like I can't do it. Because yesterday not only was I exhausted, but I just couldn't focus. And so it was, futile to sit at my computer and force myself to answer emails when I wasn't focusing on what I was doing. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, the law of diminishing returns, right? It's just better to stop. Well, I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate this opportunity, Holly, to jump in and have a conversation with you, hear how what you've done has evolved. You've not given up, though. The podcast has been going and going. It's like almost 6 years, isn't it?
It's been over 6 years, yeah. So that is the one thing that I have been consistent with for the last over 6 years. It's shocking to me because I was never a big talker. So podcasting was not kind of a natural medium for me, like I'm more of a writer. So I think it's been really interesting to see how it's become such an easy thing to keep going with.
Yeah, isn't it? Would you say that the podcast in itself is something that has helped your life as well?
Absolutely, yes, because it helps me to get in touch with myself and to formulate my own thoughts about the things that I'm sharing with other people.
Yeah, podcasting has definitely changed my life as well. Well, of course, getting to meet amazing people like Holly and have conversations, the podcast has created that. So, Holly, I do thank you again for this opportunity to check in. Again, it brings me great motivation and inspiration. I think you cannot even imagine, to go on with what I am doing and how I pursue my goals, to see that you have continued pursuing your goals. So I thank you for that. Holly, in closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, just give yourself permission to slow down. And I think that's the thing, is oftentimes we don't give ourselves permission to do that. So give it a try.
Holly Worton, again, a pleasure. I treasure. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.